Good evening and welcome to Freethought Forum. Freethought Forum is a joint production of the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm your co-host, Dale Haste.
And I'm Larry Rhodes, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and people curious about living a life free of supernatural beliefs.
This evening we're going to be discussing intelligent design, Dover, and the scientific method. And just for clarity, you'll hear us say the initials ID many times during tonight's show. ID refers to the belief in the concept of intelligent design.
Which is another name for creationism.
Certainly. And this is a call-in show, so we welcome callers to call in with questions and comments. And while we're going over a few announcements just now, we invite you to start calling in and to get a pen and paper, because we'll give you the email address later in the show. So our number is 215-2288.
And we can take calls anytime now. After the show, we'll be having happy hour at with the Atheist Society of Knoxville down at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria in the Old City. It starts around 5:30, and we'll be joining them after the show. Anybody who's atheist friendly or atheist or agnostic or just want to come down and talk and have a good drink, conversation, and food, welcome to join us. Look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table.
I'll talk a little bit about some of the activities of the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Rationalists of East Tennessee meets on the first and third Sunday of the month down at the campus of Pellissippi State Community College. They meet at 10:30. They have roundtables and lectures and discussions. They also meet on the second Sunday of the month in the evening, I think at Barnes & Noble, for their book club. So,
and this month it's 12 by 12, a one-room cabin off the grid and beyond the American dream. Be sure to visit our websites, knoxvilleatheist.org and therationalist.org for times and dates of meetups. Next we'll go into the news, local news segment, or atheist news segment.
Right. Just a note of a few free thinkers who celebrate their birthdays this month. Some famous Americans, Marilyn Monroe, Cole Porter, Natalie Portman, E.O. Wilson, the great Harvard biologist, Anne Druyan, the former the widow of Carl Sagan, American author and producer herself.
There's also Salman Rushdie, died June 19th, 1947.
He was born. He didn't die.
Born, sorry, born. It said Rushdie, and I read die, the word.
Yes.
Sharing June 24th is Ambrose Bierce and Michael Newdow, both born in June 24th, and Dan Barker was born on June 25th, the friendly neighborhood atheist and the co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation and an author.
Right.
This just in, we're still here, and so are the people from Family Radio. No reports of flying zombies at this time.
Right. So we all survived the predicted rapture from
May
21st. Always good to know.
Yep. So
tonight, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about intelligent design, or ID, and Dover, and the scientific method. One of the reasons we're highlighting this tonight is because June 7th, this very night, in 2004, is when at a board meeting of the Dover Area School Board, it was proposed to have the biology teachers begin to mention the theory of intelligent design during their classes.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that prompted this is that the Discovery Institute has a book out called Of Pandas and People that is a creationist text that they have been touting to boards of education all across the land, saying that they'd like to have this in the school instead of the regular biology books because it pushes creationism. Of course, they said it was creationism up until it's Edward Fergus versus Aguilar in 1987, when the Supreme Court said that, no, you can't do that. That's creationism is religion. And I'd like to show you a slide, if I can find it. Apparently I can't. Anyway, I'll find it in a minute. The Pandas and People book used the word creationism, and in their book for years and years and years until they got to the point of Edwards versus Aguillard, and then at that point they switched it over to intelligent design, and they used a regular word processing search and replace to do it. This came to light in the Dover trial. They had many, many instances of the word creationism in the book, which dropped to virtually zero after the Edwards versus Aguillard decision, because it was then illegal to teach creationism in school. But the number of phrases of intelligent design went right back up to the level where creationism was. So really all they did was just relabel it. Intelligent design is creationism in a white coat.
So in October of 2004, the Dover Area School Board decided by a 6-3 decision that they would have biology teachers read the following statement in their classes be added to the biology curriculum. And I quote, "Students will be made aware of the gaps/problems in Darwin's theory and of other theories of evolution, including, but not limited to, intelligent design. Note, origins of life is not taught." Then later in November, they issued a press release stating that commencing in January of 2005, teachers would be required to read the following statement to students in the 9th grade biology class at Dover High School. Quote, "The Pennsylvania academic standards require students to learn about Darwin's theory of evolution and eventually to take a standardized test, of which evolution is a part. Because Darwin's theory is a theory, it is still being tested as new evidence is discovered. The theory is not a fact. Gaps in the theory exist for which there is no evidence. A theory is defined as a well-tested explanation that unifies a broad range of observations. Intelligent design is an explanation of the origin of life that differs from Darwin's view. The reference book of Pandas and People is available for students to see if they would like to explore this view in an effort to gain an understanding of what intelligent design actually involves."
Mm-hmm. One thing about the Discovery Institute, which is absolutely nothing like the Discovery Channel or any other scientific body, even though they claim to be a scientific body, they're really pushing religion. They're pushing creationism. You can go online and do a search for the Wedge document, and it really lays out all that you need to know about what their purpose is. Their purpose is to drive a wedge into the science classroom, first with doubt cast on evolution, and then finally at the broad end of the scale bringing in regular religion. The thing about it is the Discovery Institute has been going to all these Board of Educations trying to get them to use their book, but when the fire actually happened in Dover, when the Board of Education took them at their word, and their word was, if you use our book and it comes up to trial, we will pay for the trial. In other words, they really wanted to get it in. So Dover took them at their word, and when it came time for trial, all of their expert witnesses were no-shows. They pulled all of their expert witnesses and left the Dover education system high and dry. Mm-hmm. And cost the Dover school system quite a bit of money to do that.
Ultimately, it cost them a lot of money. We'll get to a dollar figure a little bit later.
And if you happen to be sitting on a school board yourself anywhere in the country right now, you know how low the coffers of education are right now. And if you are tempted to take this book or creationism or intelligent design and insert it into your curriculum, be aware that the laws are very, very strict and very, very firm on this. And your creationism and intelligent design will not stand in court, and you will be suffered for all of the court costs up to and including the trial itself.
So returning to the case a little bit here, after the 6-3 vote by the school board, the 3 members of the board who had dissented from the decision to place this statement into the curriculum, they all resigned in protest, and very shortly after that, a group of parents of Dover students came together, worked with the ACLU to file the lawsuit, which was named Kitzmiller versus Dover. The actual name was a little bit longer than that, but
and the former school board members joined the plaintiffs on this.
That's right. Some did. That's right. Some of the former members of the board who were also parents of students in the school district, they also were co-plaintiffs in the decision.
I'd like to take this moment to remind you this is a call-in show. We are talking about intelligent design, evolution, creationism in schools today, and you can call us at 215-2288. We welcome your call.
Right. So when the ACLU decided not to file a preliminary injunction in the case, meaning that they were going to bring the case to trial, but they weren't going to attempt to prevent the the direction of the school board to have the teachers read this as part of the curriculum, the statement I mentioned earlier. Many of the teachers, to their credit, I think, actually refused to read the statement in class. You know, they said that they were going to exercise their own freedom to opt out of participating in this. So,
but in this particular case, didn't the school superintendent come in himself?
That's correct.
And read the statement to the students, the same statement that the science educator would not read them.
Right, which I think actually kind of bolsters the case of the science teachers that this was an incidence of politics or culture war being injected into their classrooms and not an actual aspect of science.
So true. The judge itself, you might think that this is a case of an activist judge, a judge who likes to push liberal values and is an atheist or whatever. But no, this particular judge, Judge John E. Jones III, was appointed by George W. Bush to that district. He was a conservative judge, but he was an intelligent judge and one that listened to the facts and made a decision that was applicable to the laws at the time, and they currently are. It is funny that he said after it was over, this is a quote, "It is ironic that several of these individuals who so staunchly and touted the religious conviction in public would time and again lie to cover their tracks and disguise the real purpose behind the ID policy."
That's a good point.
They not only lied about the purpose of the ID policy, but also they lied about the points of the case.
True.
Who collected the money, who bought the books, and the fact that one of the school superintendents who had actually talked to the news about ID being creationism and that we need to stand up for Jesus in the classroom, denied it in front of the judge.
True.
And when the attorney brought this to the judge's attention, the judge asked for the transcript of his deposition and took over the questioning of this particular defendant. And it was not a pleasant day for that defendant when the judge himself sits there and starts questioning him.
Right.
I'm not sure if he was charged with perjury after the trial, but he certainly could have been.
No, I don't think they were actually charged with perjury, but certainly in his very expansive ruling, Judge Jones made it very clear that he felt, as you mentioned, Larry, that some of these witnesses for the defense had definitely lied under oath. He didn't put any sugarcoating on that.
No, it's true. The ID trial, this is not the first intelligent design or creationism or evolution trial in America. It's got a long history. The Butler Act of 1923, I think it was, in Tennessee, was brought to a head during the Scopes trial. You may remember the monkey trial, having heard about that. This was like phase one of the intelligent design or creationism movement. The first one is ban evolution. And they did attempt that. They passed the Butler Act, which indeed banned evolution in Tennessee. Tennessee educators got together, and I got a volunteer in Mr. Scopes. He taught evolution in school knowing that he was going to be arrested for breaking the law. And he was arrested, tried, and convicted in a very public case. It was like the trial of the century. If you haven't read about the Scopes trial, you might want to do that, look it up. He was convicted, charged a fine of $100. They refused to pay it, appealed it, and it was overturned on a technicality. And that was a problem because it left the Butler Act in place. And it didn't get turned over until Epperson versus Arkansas in 1968. So it lasted 40 years because it was denied on a technicality.
True. Yeah. That is a shame that it took over 40 years after the Scopes monkey trial before the banning of the teaching of evolution was actually revoked.
Right. Phase 2 of this evolution, anti-evolution movement was equal time, and we're still seeing an awful lot of that now. Creation science demands equal time, and they had in Arkansas they passed the Act 592 law, and it came up for trial in McLean versus Arkansas, but it apparently was not resolved, and it also came up in Edwards versus Aguilar, and that went to the Supreme Court. Edwards versus Aguilar this is the case that said that creationism is religion, and as such it cannot be taught in a science class or cannot even be taught in school. And that's the way the Constitution is written. The government has to have hands off on all religions. Many of the religious proponents say that, well, that doesn't mean we have to have hands off of the government. It depends. If you're a religious person and you have an office that you serve for the state or the government, like you're a teacher, and you bring religion into the classroom in the guise of intelligent design or creationism, then you are representing the government, and the people, the population of the county, can bring suit against you, and that's what's happening in these cases. It's interesting to note that in Edwards versus Aguilar, that the two dissenting judges, it passed this law was passed 7-2, and one of the two judges was Scalia, and the other was Rehnquist. Of course, he's dead now. But then there's this third phase. They moved after the demand for equal time, which was turned down by Edwards versus Aguilar. Phase 3 moved into this intelligent design theory, where they say what they're really trying to do is push evolution off to the side and say, we have a theory too. It's intelligent design, it's science. And that's where the Discovery Institute has really come into its own, trying to say that, yes, it's science, we've written books about it, but the thing about it is, if it were science, it would be able to do experiments, it would be able to predict outcomes in the natural world. It has not produced any of that. All it's produced is a assertion that life is too complex to have evolved. But, a flat assertion like that can be equally refuted by saying, it's just a flat assertion. It has no evidential background.
Right. So, during the trial in Dover, one of the key witnesses for the plaintiffs was Kenneth Miller. He's a biology professor at Brown University, eminent author. They asked him while he was on the stand, what would be the harm from reading the statement which I read earlier, basically talking about how evolution is just a theory, etc. And he gave a powerful twofold response. He said, first, it falsely undermines the scientific status of evolutionary theory and gives students a false understanding of what theory actually means. Right. And I'll get more into that in a little bit here as well. And he said, secondly, as a person of faith who was blessed with 2 daughters, this is Miller talking about himself, who raised both of my daughters in the church, and had they been given an education in which they were explicitly or implicitly forced to choose between God and science, I would have been furious because I want my children to keep their religious faith. So that's just another example of the fact that the plaintiffs wanting to prevent intelligent design being taught as science were not necessarily motivated by their own atheistic beliefs, but they just want true science to be taught as science.
That's true. This is certainly not over either. Even earlier in this year, matter of fact, in a lot of states all across the country, every year sees new laws being introduced to promote intelligent design, and its new name, academic freedom.
Right. If
you hear that phrase, a lot of time they're going to be talking about intelligent design or creationism underneath. This is from the New Mexican. Public school teachers, science teachers who want to teach intelligent design alongside evolution want to challenge the accepted scientific views about global warming and would also be protected under a bill introduced in the House. Representative Tom Anderson, a Republican from Albuquerque, in his House Bill 302, said it's not an evolution bill. When a reporter said he wanted to talk about Anderson's evolution bill, he says, I don't have an evolution bill. I'm just trying to protect teachers. I'm trying to protect another Galileo. Talk about a miscarriage of phrasing there.
Yes.
Reference to the father of modern physicist. Thing about it is, the bill states that the state shall not prohibit any teacher when a controversial scientific topic is being taught in accordance with adopted standards and curricula from informing students about relevant scientific information regarding either the scientific, how many times are you going to use scientific, strengths and scientific weaknesses pertaining to the topic. A teacher who chooses to provide such information shall be protected from reassignment, termination, discipline, or other discrimination in doing so. Now, this is already the case. If a teacher has valid scientific information about a topic she's talking about, she can do that, or he can do that. This is written to protect a teacher who happens to mention intelligent design or contradicts the teachings that we are now coming up with about the current status of the global weather patterns being changed. She can just go ahead and say, nah, that's not right, you know, we've got other information. She can poo-poo it, put it down without any kind of problem with repercussions from the school district. And of course, I believe this particular bill died, which is good, but there will be more coming.
Mm-hmm. And to return a little bit to the statement of that we hear many times that evolution is a theory, or people often say evolution is just, people who are opponents of it say evolution is just a theory. The simple fact is that those people don't have a really good understanding of what a scientific theory actually is. I mean, a scientific theory is a cohesive, if it's a widely accepted scientific theory,
tested.
it'll be well tested. It'll be the best explanation we have for a particular phenomenon. So the people who use theory in that context to say evolution is just a theory, they don't quite understand that. Those that want to have statements such as evolution is just a theory placed into textbooks, science textbooks, you don't hear them often scrambling to say germ theory of disease is just a theory, or gravitational theory of planetary motion is just a theory, or the atomic theory of matter is just a theory. All these are true statements, but it confuses.
A theory is the highest grade that a science body of science can hope for. When it gets to the state of a theory, what you're basically saying is this is the best explanation we have of observable fact in nature. When we get to theory, we're using it to predict outcomes of experiments, manufacturing procedures, cell phones. All of these things are things that we can use based on the theory to let us go forward in our research and design and development. One of the predictions that's interesting that evolution made, and geology, was that a certain creature, the amphibian creature that came out of that we predict, or evolution predicts, would come out of water and become a land-based mammal, existed at a certain time in the past. So what scientists did was go back. They knew where certain strata of geological rock exist from that time period. They went to that place, they started digging, and they discovered Tiktaalik. And it had amphibian features as well as aquatic features.
Right. There's a transitional fossil between fish and amphibians.
Right. A good scientific theory will make predictions that are testable.
Right.
And creation design, or intelligent design, does not do that.
Right.
And we have a caller. Welcome to Freethought Forum. You're on the air. May we have a name?
Yes, you can call me Charlie.
Hello, Charlie. Do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I do. You know, a few months ago, the Tennessee House of Representatives passed a bill, HB 368. It was sponsored by Reverend Dunn in Knoxville, or not a reverend, a Representative Dunn in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. And it basically is a backdoor way to allow creationist science teachers to promote their views in the classroom. Mm-hmm. Now, Representative Dunn claims it's not. Are you familiar with this bill?
I'm not. Have you heard of it?
I have heard about this, Charlie, and thanks for calling in. Was it Representative Faison who had promoted this? Is that correct?
Well, it was Dunn who actually had submitted the bill, but
Okay.
Faison's a different case here,
Okay.
and he's kind of an interesting character because he said that evolution, or at least what he would characterize as macroevolution, has never been proved. He said that believes sincerely in evolution among species, but he doesn't believe in macroevolution, where one species would eventually evolve into another.
Mm-hmm.
But they all have the same mechanism, right?
All they need is more time.
Right.
All they need is more time and geographic isolation.
That's right.
And so he wrote a letter in the Newport Plain Talk a few weeks back, and it says that, oh yes, he believes in this evolution so far as between species, but
within species.
Within the species. But then he goes on in the rest of the letter to talk about how there's a mountain of evidence for intelligent design. It's just crying out to be heard. But there's almost nothing in the refereed literature on intelligent design.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right.
Well, plus in the Dover trial, they had a perfect opportunity to present this mountain of evidence. I mean, this is a federal court, a district court, and they didn't come through with any of it. All that came through was a few claims.
And so what this Jeremy Faison fellow says is he actually believes in the Genesis account in the Bible.
That's religion.
Right, that's fine to believe in that, but that's not something we should be taught in a science class.
Right.
Exactly. So he's dissimulating on this. I mean, he's basically trying to hide behind the intelligent design wall.
You're right.
But his own beliefs are quite clear, that he believes in creationism.
Right.
And these are the people who are making and passing laws down there in Nashville now.
Unfortunately, that's true.
I mean, the Senate tabled this.
And
So
in Washington.
if it comes up again and they pass it, it's almost certainly to open Tennessee up to another monkey trial court suit again.
Yeah, another loss.
I don't think we need that here.
No,
time and money.
It'd be good to do without that.
Yeah.
And Charlie, I think also that we mentioned earlier that one of the current stratagems for trying to get this into the public schools is to tout it as an aspect of academic freedom, and I think that's what's being done in the Tennessee legislature now.
Yeah. They're trying to hide it behind freedom of speech, like a science teacher would have the freedom to speak her mind in the classroom. Right. But she's a paid employee of the state, in that she's there to pass on the curriculum that the state has adopted. And for her to sit up there and say this curriculum is wrong, you got to read your Bible, that's a problem.
Right.
Yeah. Well, all this is designed, to be pretty much sub rosa, and to sneak this stuff in and not put it out in the open, really.
So true.
So I thank you guys for putting this program on.
Sure.
Well, thanks for your call, Charlie. And
talking to you.
I'll leave you. Good talk with you too. I'll leave you with one thought that I've heard someone say before, that people who believe in microevolution but not in macroevolution is similar to saying that you could never have enough pennies to add up to $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard that one too, and it's right.
Charlie, how did you find our show?
I'm sorry?
Have you been watching our show before?
Oh, I've watched your show before, yeah.
Okay, so you've known it was out there. I was just wondering how you found it.
Well, how I found it.
Originally.
How you discovered it.
Yeah.
But that's okay, Charlie. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good time for a mid-program break. You want to take the first?
Sure.
We have a kind of script for this.
In case you're just tuning in, this is a Freethought Forum, a program produced jointly by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. And we also have individual contributions, and I'd like to take a moment here to thank RNL for contributions to today's show.
You can send us feedback at the email address on your screen. It'll be up there in 2 seconds. But do not wait. This is a call-in show, and we are live today, it's June 7th, 2011. The Atheist Society of Knoxville meets several times during the month. We have an evening meetup for food and drink, as we mentioned earlier. We'll be going down to Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria after this show. Some people are probably already gathering there now as we speak. You can visit the ASK, or the KnoxvilleAtheist.org website to find times and locations. The Rationalists of East Tennessee has Sunday activities.
Yeah, these are the ones I mentioned earlier, but for those tuning in now, I'll mention again. First and third Sundays of the month, they're down at the Palisade State campus off of Palisade Parkway, 10:30 a.m. Sundays. And then the second Sunday of each month, I think it's 5 o'clock, but it may be 4 o'clock, I'm not sure. They're at Barnes & Noble in Suburban Plaza for a book club. These events are listed at the Rationalists of East Tennessee website, which is rationalist.org.
Okay, getting back to ID and evolution. Oh, this is a call-in show. There is a number on the screen. We just had a caller. Welcome to call in now anytime. Lines are open, 215-2288. One thing I would like to mention a little bit about is that there are biology teachers out there that are doing exactly what we were talking about doing earlier. They would teach biology as far as it was necessary, but when they get to the chapter on evolution, or when it comes to mentioning evolution, they would skirt around the issue, they would deny it, they would insert their religion here, and that's a problem. The ACLU, or the Freedom from Religion Foundation, would like to hear from you if you're a student who has a teacher who does this. They have lawyers and funds ready to take that person to court and make them do the job that they're supposed to do for the state.
Okay. So one of the things that was mentioned earlier, Larry, you were talking about the idea of scientific theory, actual scientific theory, being able to make predictions. Mm-hmm. Another aspect of true science is that it is conducted in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Okay? Mm-hmm. One of the star witnesses for the defendants, those in favor of teaching intelligent design in the Dover case, was Michael Behe. Michael Behe is the author of many books, perhaps most famously a book called Darwin's Black Box, in which he disputes some of the aspects of evolutionary theory. When he was on the stand being cross-examined in the Dover trial, he conceded that, quote, "There are no peer-reviewed articles by anyone advocating for intelligent design, supported by pertinent experiments or calculations, which provide detailed, rigorous accounts of how intelligent design of any biological system occurred." End quote. And that was a fairly devastating concession for him to have to make, but it was certainly based in reality. You know, the peer-reviewed literature in actual scientific journals for intelligent design is non-existent.
Right. And didn't he present an example of a non-reducible complexity in a particular organism in the courtroom? It was the flagellum of a bacteria, right. And he said the motor for this, the little propeller thing that supplies the motion for this flagellum, could not be reduced even by a single part. It would stop working. Therefore, it had to have been created by a creator. What's kind of funny is he says nowhere has anybody been able to explain how this could come into being without having been created from scratch. And the opposing attorney, the Dover School District Attorney, brought him a book, says, "Have you read this one? This explains how it's done. You know, this biology textbook right here goes into great depth about that particular thing. Have you read that?" No, I haven't read that one. So he goes back to the desk and brings another one. This is another offer, you know, his PhD and a doctorate in biology, chemistry, and hadn't read that one. He brought so many books that Behe was having trouble reading around them. They're looking around them. And he says, "If you haven't read any of these books?" He says, "No, but it really doesn't matter." This is the thing that gets me, is he said, it really doesn't matter what they say. It's irreducibly complex. It cannot exist without. In other words, he didn't do any of the research. He's just making the flat assertion that this can't happen, right? Because of his religious beliefs.
Right.
The thing about it is, one of the attorneys was sitting there with a mousetrap on his tie, and the thing about a mousetrap is it has like 4 working parts, and this particular mousetrap was missing 2 parts. It didn't work as a mousetrap anymore, but it made a pretty good tie clasp, and that was the point they were trying to make. If you took away like 30 of the 50-something parts that go into this motor, this biological molecular motor, you still have a pretty good molecular pump. Right. And he said, you know, organisms use this type of pump all the time. This is what we call adaptive evolution. It takes something that already exists and adapts it for another purpose. Right. And of course, he didn't understand all of that because he hadn't read the books, but he just flatly asserted it and said it couldn't happen.
Right. There's certain people who, to this day, you know, say that the human eye, you know, is such a complex mechanism, and it has all these different parts in it that make it work together. And if you take away any of those parts, you know, you don't have a true working eye anymore, and it's therefore worthless. But that's a silly argument, because clearly a little bit of sight is a heck of a lot better than no sight at all. You know, a pinhole eye, which some animals have, is a lot better than no eye at all. And an eye spot, which certain planaria and other microorganisms have, is better than having no light sensitivity at all. So to say all these things are irreducibly complex truly misses the point.
You don't have to go back into geological formations to find old eyes to see that they've evolved. We can go out into the world today and find pinhole eyes. The Nautilus has pinhole eye. It's like having an eye with a hole in the front, but even water can get into it, but it still allows them to see. Even plants are sensitive to light. They have, you know, they will even turn to face light. That's like the most basic eye there is. You can't focus it, but it does respond to light and tell it where light is coming from. Right. And if you start cupping that a little bit, then you get more and more direction. And if you can close it, there's lots and lots of stages that you can go through before you even get to a point where you need a lens. And a membrane over the eye is a rudimentary lens. Richard Dawkins has a saying that's pretty cute. He says, he's often been asked, what good is half an eye? He says, well, about half is good. Yeah. You know? And in tooth and nail of nature out there, half an eye is better than no eye.
Much better.
It can save your life and your progenies.
Much better. Yeah. So I'll return to Michael Behe, the witness for the defense again. He was asked, you know, to come up with his definition of what a theory would be, and he gave a definition that was so broad it didn't fit in with what you and I were talking about earlier, Larry, about being, well accepted within the community, having broad explanatory power, making predictions that can be tested and things like that. And he eventually had to concede on the stand that his definition, using his definition of theory, that even astrology would qualify as a theory.
They asked him that point.
Another devastating moment.
He said, yes, that would qualify.
Right.
And of course, we all know that astrology is just basically bunk.
Right.
It's pandering to a crowd who will believe it.
Right. So we certainly like to think that that the nature of the science that we want to teach to students in our schools rises somewhat above the level of astrology.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but the judge in the Dover trial said that the Dover School Board acted with breathtaking inanity. How Intelligent Design flunked its test case. This is an article in Time magazine about the time. It says intelligent design is a religious idea, and a Pennsylvania school board may not introduce it into the classroom, as a federal judge ruled today. Judge John E. Jones III ruled that Dover School Board improperly introduced religion into the classroom when it required science teachers to read a brief statement during the 9th grade biology class. So you'll hear a lot of people say that intelligent design is science, and this is a federal judge, unbiased federal judge in my opinion, who says flatly that it is. And I recommend that you go online, find the decision, and read the decision. It was very well worded and very convincing.
Yeah, it was. Judge Jones really did give a sweeping, very well thought out, well considered, legally sound ruling in this case, and it's been held up as an example of the proper way to rule from the bench. You mentioned earlier part of his statement here. His statement was 139 pages in its totality, and certain parts of it stand out. He himself predicted that there would be people who did not agree with the decision, who would then come back and say that, you know, this was a case of judicial activism, you know. And here's a quote from his decision. "Those who disagree with our ruling will likely mark it as a product of an activist judge. If so, they will have erred, as this is manifestly not an activist court. Rather, this case came to us as a result of the activism of an ill-informed faction of a school board, aided by a national public interest law firm eager to find a constitutional test on ID, who, in combination, drove the board to adopt an imprudent and ultimately unconstitutional policy. The breathtaking inanity of the board's decision is evident when considered against the factual backdrop which has now been fully revealed through this trial. The students, parents, and teachers of the Dover Area School District deserved better than to be dragged into this legal maelstrom with its resulting utter waste of monetary and personal resources."
That's true. And many times you'll just say that, you know, well, we need a little bit of religion in school. You'll hear people say, you know, in this particular case, one of the defendants said, well, you know, Jesus died for us. It's about time that we stood up for him for something. The thing about it is, America is predominantly a Christian country, predominantly. But we are a really mixed bag of all kinds of people. And the Muslim contingent is growing in many areas. How would you like to find your school, your student going to school next week or next month or next year, where the teacher says, okay, everybody must go outside to pray 5 times during the day? I mean, that's a rather extreme example, but this is what you would be subjecting non-believers or different believers of students in their classroom to if we did bring Jesus back into the classroom. By the way, I'd like to head this off to the past too. Praying is not outlawed in school.
No.
What was her name? Madeleine Murray O'Hare got the federal government to say that teachers could not lead the class in prayer. A state employee, a person who represents the government, cannot make students pray, which is basically what the law says. Now, there are still prayers going on in school all the time.
Right.
People gather at the flag, they gather in the hallways, they gather during breaks and at lunch. There's probably more praying going on in school nowadays than there was in Marilyn Murray O'Hare's time. But it has not been outlawed. No. The teaching of it, the representing of it by the government has been outlawed, right, as it should be.
Right.
Any more than you would like them to mandate that a different church represent a different church in the classroom than yours.
Right. And as I've heard more than one WAG say, you don't need to worry about prayer disappearing from the schools. As long as there are algebra tests, there will be prayer in schools. So.
Again, this is the call-in show. We have about 15 minutes left in the show. It's 215-2288. We're talking about intelligent design, evolution, and teaching creationism in school, and particularly the Dover trial. Did you have anything about?
I was going to say again, just something else from Judge Jones's decision. The idea of whether or not intelligent design was religion or not, and whether or not they would be teaching it or just mentioning it. He said, throughout the trial and in various submissions to the court, defendants vigorously argued that the reading of the statement is not teaching ID, but instead is merely making students aware of it. In fact, one consistency among the Dover School Board members' testimony, which was marked by selective memories and outright lies under oath, as will be discussed in more detail below, is that they did not think they needed to be knowledgeable about ID because it was not being taught to the students. We disagree. An educator reading the disclaimer is engaged in teaching, even if it is colossally bad teaching. Defendant's argument is a red herring because the Establishment Clause forbids not just teaching religion, but any governmental action that endorses or has the primary purpose or effect of advancing religion.
Well, the judge agreed. He pointedly rejected that intelligent design is a legitimate scientific theory. He said, to be sure, Darwin's theory of evolution is imperfect. people will always be talking about the details of it, how it happens, things like that. But evolution itself is a fact, and it's not disputed in the scientific world at all. He says, however, the fact that a scientific theory cannot yet render an explanation on every point should not be used as a pretext to thrust an untestable alternative hypothesis grounded in religion into the science classroom, or to misrepresent well-established scientific propositions, which is what that statement was going to be doing. He went further to sharply reject any suggestion. I'm sorry, we have a phone call. Welcome to Freethought Forum. May I have a name or a nickname?
Well, hello, this is Faithless Forest. I'm sorry I can't be with you guys today, and I'm watching streaming over the internet.
Very good.
And I wanted to say thank you for telling us all about the intelligent design controversy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have anything you'd like to add to it?
Well, sure. I wanted to mention that to be a knowledgeable critic of intelligent design, I read Michael Behe's book, Darwin's Black Box.
You're a better man than I am, Faithless.
Yeah, well, and I have to remark on a couple of things. I couldn't help but be offended at how he treated his reader. This man is actually taking advantage of the people who believe what he's writing. He goes out of his way to very disingenuously redefine evolution beyond actually what Darwin talked about, because what he's really trying to do is attack the concept of where's the beginning of life start, meaning the origin of life.
Which evolution does not address.
Yeah, and so he dishonestly redefines what Darwin is talking about to be that, because of course the title of his book is Darwin's Black Box. He wants to try and convince the people to buy his book because he's going to lie to them and convince them that he's proven Darwin wrong. And then he goes on to create some examples where he claims to have found examples of things in nature that could not have evolved because he calls them irreducibly complex. And there he makes a terrible logical error. Even if these objects were irreducibly complex, there's no way he's demonstrated that they did not evolve from things that were not irreducibly complex, and therefore could be modified more readily.
Right.
And the fossil record shows us how that exactly happened to whales. In his examples, he talks about the swimming mechanism of the cellular flagella, but he in his book says point blank that it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the flagella, the size of less than a cell, or a ship on the ocean. And so in his own book, he straddles the size range that happens to include the whales and dolphins. And we all know that whales and dolphins developed a swimming mechanism, a fluked tail, and then simplified their system by removing at least the hind legs and the front limbs becoming
of which they still have rudimentary.
They still have vestigial hip bones and things like that, which were clearly
well, even their
legs in the past.
Even their motion, this type of motion that whales and dolphins do is a running motion that land animals use. They gallop.
They
flex
their spine in the up and down axis, whereas fish do side to side. Yeah.
So that tells them that they evolved from land animals.
Well, and goodness, let's see. They breathe air. They give birth to young live.
Suckle them.
They have mammaries. They suckle their young. It's like an amazing thing that people would try to deny the obvious with respect to the sea mammals. But back to Behe, the thing about it is that he is actually dishonest with his target audience. Apparently, in scientific circles, he's been cornered, and he elaborates more on his theory than is in the book, and he says, well, he's just postulating that all of the variability in life was in the first created cells, and then the different species arose by removal of that information. And so, in other words, the first life had the information to be humans and dolphins and
so we devolved.
Bats and sponges and redwood trees.
Yeah.
And
the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And so he's not undermining the common ancestry between humans and chimpanzees, and further to gorillas, and further yet to sponges, and further yet to strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
So evolution's true then.
All right.
Well, the thing about it is he doesn't bring any evidence to the
table. Other
table.
callers to call in and tell us where Behe went wrong, or some of the other ID proponents. There's a William Dembski who makes similar erroneous logical errors, and perhaps I challenge any of the other listeners to call in and tell us how Dembski gets it wrong.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
Thanks, Faith.
Carry on.
Forrest.
Thanks. Something we mentioned earlier, I thought I'd mention now, Larry, and that was the financial cost to the Dover area school district because of this rather silly action taken by the school board. As we've already said, Judge Jones's decision was fully for the plaintiffs, so the school board was going to have to pay the legal fees of the plaintiffs, right, the trial, and the legal fees, they said they were actually entitled to well over $2 million in legal fees, and the plaintiff's attorneys agreed to drop that fee to just over $1 million because they said they realized they were dealing with such a small school district. But it does stand as something of a warning, something you mentioned earlier, that
right.
School boards who may attempt to enact silly measures like this in the future need to think very closely about what they are committing other people's money to.
This is a very real possibility too, because this was not a federal decision at a national level. It was a federal decision for that district. So the Discovery Institute may still be approaching other school boards today, with the same ploy, saying that was different. We have better defendants now. We have defendants that won't lie. We had problems with this and the details, and they're still trying to talk people into using this pandas and people, as well as presenting statements that denigrate evolution to the students. And we all have to depend on the integrity of the science teachers out there to not stand for this and hold the school board accountable for this type of action.
Right.
Before it gets to the point where it's a legal case that costs $1 million to the school board and to the school district.
Right. And as you mentioned, this was a decision at the district level in federal court. So you might wonder, well, why wouldn't the school board appeal the decision? Take it to a higher court so they could get this decision reversed. Well, as it turns out, the board members who had voted for this action, they were all voted out during the next election. So by the time the decision came down, the school board had been reseated with opponents to this decision who recognized that this was a losing proposition. My understanding is that the people of Dover were not at all happy with those school board members who had enacted this folly, and were only too eager to vote them out of office.
That should be another lesson for potential school board members or prospective school board members who want to push this. Their life and their job may not be that long. Jones, the judge, sharply rejected any suggestion that evolution was somehow at odds with religion. Both defendants and many of the leading proponents of ID make a bedrock assumption that is utterly false. Now, this goes to show that Judge Jones was a conservative, religious man himself. He was not some off-the-wall, quote, liberal activist judge. He said, their proposition is that evolutionary theories is antithetical to belief in the existence of a supreme being and to religion in general. Repeatedly in this trial, plaintiffs' expert witnesses testified that the theory of evolution represents good science and overwhelmingly accepted by the scientific community, and that it in no ways conflicts, nor does it deny the existence of a creator.
Mm-hmm. We may be able to have time to get one more phone call in here, but before we close, I'd like to tell people that if they'd like to learn a little bit more about this subject, that they can go to find a couple of different documentaries, one by BBC and one by PBS's Nova.
Nova. I recommend the Nova one. It's about 2 hours long, but it's very entertaining. 2 hours go very quickly, and you learn a lot.
Right.
Welcome to Freethought Forum. May we have a name or nickname? You're on the air. If you're listening to us on the TV, please turn off the TV and listen to the phone.
I had a question concerning other areas of science. Has there been any attempt that you know of to introduce religious dogma or religious beliefs into either physics in the area of cosmology, say the beginning of the universe, or in chemistry?
Well, the Pope himself said that we should not look into the Big Bang at all, and it should be left into the domain of God. But that's the only instance that I know of. I haven't heard of any laws being passed to challenge the Big Bang theory per se.
No attempts by school boards or by citizens to introduce laws into those areas of science also.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that, I must say.
No.
I did hear when I was at a convention once, an atheist convention, about the teaching of science of chemistry in some of the Muslim countries. I think this was either in Turkey or Pakistan. That the theory was, it was taught in schools this way, that if one brings two atoms of hydrogen in close proximity with one atom of oxygen, and if it be the will of Allah, then it becomes a molecule of water.
Right.
So, I think it might only be a matter of time before religious entities start trying to introduce religion into those other areas, particularly in the case of cosmology.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Right. I would say that it's possible that the statement you made there about the way chemistry was taught in this Muslim country, it may be more of a cultural artifact than actual religious dogma in science education.
Okay, I see. Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm kind of curious to find out how this Arab Spring that we went through is going to work out. Once the protesters get in charge of the country, are they going to go pro-science, or are they going to go pro-religion or pro-secular? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that it's a revolt against.
There. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking my call.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
When do we need to head towards
Jones seemed particularly annoyed with the Dover school board members who denied under oath that the intelligent design was not based on religious conviction, which is, they were just flat lying to the judge many times. Anyway, I guess we can go into the close of the program. We only have about a minute and a half left. This is Freethought Forum, brought to you by the Rationalists of East Tennessee and the Atheist Society of Knoxville. We're going to be meeting down after the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria in the Old City. We invite anybody that wants to come down and join. Please don't come to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch.
Right. As we mentioned before, you can reach this show via email at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com. You can also call this station and purchase a DVD of this and other past Freethought Forum programs. I believe that phone number is 215-8848 up on the screen now.
And if you put our websites back up on the screen, maybe they could write those down real quick. KnoxvilleAtheist.org. That's the Atheist Society of Knoxville, as you can see. And the Rationalists of East Tennessee can be found at rationalists.org. Please go to the websites for more details and times of meetings.
So we'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Dale Haste on behalf of Larry Rhodes. I'd like to also thank Sam and Jonas for working with us tonight to produce the show and handle our callers. As Garrison Keeler says, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.
I like to do good work.